Welcome to this regional news report. We're bringing you the latest political and economic developments straight from our sources in Greenland, Iceland, the Faroe Islands, and Shetland.
And just to be clear, we're presenting this information as we have it. No opinions, no speculation from our end.
Exactly. We'll kick things off with Greenland, then head over to Iceland, followed by the Faroe Islands, and we'll wrap up with Shetland.
Okay, so Greenland first. There's been quite a bit of talk about Greenland's role within the Nordic Council of Ministers.
Oh, yeah. What's the gist?
Well, the Secretary General, Karen Elleman, she's actually come out in support of giving Greenland and the Faroe Islands more power, sort of suggesting they could act more like independent countries within the council itself.
More like independent countries. That sounds like a pretty big shift.
It really does. Elleman mentioned to Politiken that, it should be achievable, stressing Nordic unity, especially with the current geopolitical climate.
And how's Denmark reacting to this?
Yeah. Denmark seems largely on board, actually. Morten Dahlen, the Minister for Nordic Cooperation, announced the government supports amending the Helsinki Treaty.
The Helsinki Treaty.
Yeah, to allow full membership for the Faroe Islands, Greenland, and Åland. The Danish Prime Minister, Mette Frederiksen, apparently expressed support for this last year, too.
So political will seems to be there. Is it straightforward?
Well, Dahlen did say it might be legally complicated. That's the phrase he used. But he also said it shouldn't be stopped because of that.
Right. Legal hurdles, but not necessarily roadblocks.
Exactly. The Nordic governments have decided to do a legal review, look into the potential issues that full membership might raise. Dahlen emphasized, though, that the political support should carry on while that review happens.
And this comes after some friction, didn't it, with Greenland and the Council?
That's right. You might remember Greenland recently paused its participation because they weren't invited to a defense policy meeting during the Swedish presidency.
Oh.
And the current head of Greenland's government, Jens Fredrik Nielsen, he's also indicated he's prepared to boycott meetings if things don't change.
So a bit of tension there. And just to remind everyone, the Nordic Council is the parliamentary body for their cooperation, right?
Correct. It's the main forum for that sort of interparliamentary work.
Okay, let's shift gears slightly within Greenland. The economy.
Yeah, a little story here about a fisherman, Aslak Wilhelm Jensen from Nuuk. He recently tried something new, sending fresh lumpfish roe to auction over in Denmark.
Fresh roe. Interesting. How did that go?
Apparently, it's something he'd wanted to do for a while. He's even encouraging younger Greenlanders, telling them to get the right courses and understand the export rules.
Good initiative. Was it successful?
The auctioneer, Jesper Kongstad, said the quality was good, which is positive. But the timing wasn't ideal. It was a bit late in the season, so it didn't fetch the top prices you might see earlier, like January to March.
Timing is everything, I suppose. Okay, unfortunately, there's also some crime news from Nuuk.
Yes, sadly. There was a night with vandalism and break-ins. Unknown individuals apparently broke into an institution called USK.
USK?
Yeah, and they also vandalized NUI, which is a youth club. The police got the report about the USK break-in quite early, around 5:47 a.m.
Do they know who did it or what was taken?
No, that's the thing. They currently lack information on the perpetrators or if anything specific was stolen from USK. The damage at NUI, the youth club, was mainly broken windows, recorded as vandalism.
And the police.
They're appealing for any information from the public as they don't have leads right now. They did acknowledge, though, that there's been a bit of a wave of break-ins recently in Nuuk, but without pointing to a specific cause.
Okay, worrying trend there.
Yeah.
Let's finish up on Greenland with something more positive education.
Right. There's this Danish-funded project called Kvitsessa. It's been running since 2018, aiming to digitalize education, particularly in Greenland's coastal settlements.
Why the focus on coastal settlements?
Well, many of these smaller places lack fully qualified teachers. Often they rely on local people who haven't had formal teacher training.
So Kvitsessa tries to bridge that gap.
Exactly. According to Verdens Bedstenyheder, the project uses iPads to deliver teaching from qualified teachers remotely. Greenland has 75 primary schools, and 52 of them are in these smaller settlements.
Wow, 52. And many are very small.
Yeah, many have fewer than 10 students, with one local untrained teacher covering everything. A researcher at the University of Greenland, Midlerak Lennart, pointed out this really affects education quality and contributes to lower results.
But this new initiative using iPads is helping.
It seems so. Brita Lohman from the Institute for Learning mentioned it's having a positive impact, connecting students with teachers for all subjects which they wouldn't normally have access to.
Okay, good to hear about innovative solutions there. Let's move across to Iceland now, starting with politics.
Yes, quite a stir in Icelandic politics. Solveig Anna Jónsdóttir has resigned from the Socialist Party.
Resigned. She was quite prominent, wasn't she? Ranked third on their list recently.
Exactly. But she stated she could no longer belong to a group with what she called a terribly broken atmosphere.
Whoa. Strong words. What prompted this?
It seems to have followed a Facebook post by another leading candidate, Maria Pétursdóttir. Apparently, Maria accused Solveig Anna of, and this is a direct quote, speaking directly into the far right and fascism.
Wow, that's quite an accusation within a party. How did Solveig Anna respond?
She said she just didn't understand what she'd done to deserve such outrageous insults. She mentioned being compared to Donald Trump on some discussion program and also said she was tired of woke nonsense.
So a major internal conflict spilling out.
Definitely. Maria Pétursdóttir accused Solveig Anna of splitting the party. Solveig Anna, in turn, talked about feeling intense hatred directed at her over the past few years and basically felt her opinions weren't welcome anymore.
Sounds like things got pretty heated internally.
Yeah, she mentioned heated discussions within the party's Facebook group. She ended up resigning via email to the party leadership. Hasn't spoken with the party's founder about it.
A significant departure then. Okay, sticking with Icelandic politics, but on the international stage, Eurovision.
Ah, yes, Eurovision. Iceland's foreign minister, Þorgerður Katrín Gunnarsdóttir, has stated her opposition to Israel participating this year.
On what grounds?
She cited war crimes being committed in Gaza. However, she also clarified that she believes the final decision rests with the European Broadcasting Union, the EBU.
Did she draw any parallels?
Yes, she compared it to Russia's current non-participation in the contest.
Okay, let's shift to legal matters in Iceland.
Yeah.
Something about aquaculture permits.
That's right. There's a bit of legal uncertainty now surrounding permits for open net pen aquaculture, specifically in the East Fjords.
Why the uncertainty?
It stems from an opinion issued by the parliamentary ombudsman. The ombudsman concluded that an employee at the Ministry of Infrastructure was actually unqualified to approve the regional coastal plan for the East Fjords.
And that coastal plan is important for permits.
Crucial. It's basically a prerequisite for the Environment Agency to issue permits for activities like fish farming in marine and coastal areas.
So what happens now?
Well, the Minister of Environment, Energy and Climate, Johan Paul Johansson, has instructed the Environment Agency to monitor the situation closely, especially regarding issuing new permits. He stressed the agency's duty to ensure all operations comply with the plan and noted the importance of the ombudsman's opinion.
And the ministry that approved the plan.
Planning matters now fall under the Ministry of Social Affairs and Housing. They're reviewing the ombudsman's opinion to see how it impacts the infrastructure minister's earlier decision to confirm the coastal plan. They have about 3 months to respond to the ombudsman.
So potentially impacting existing or future fish farms in that area?
Yeah.
Okay. There's also an update on that fish escape incident from last year. Arctic fish.
Yes, the one in Patreksfjörður back in August 2023.
Wow.
The national prosecutor has now confirmed the decision by the chief of police in the West Fjords to drop the investigation.
Remind us, who was being investigated?
The Food and Veterinary Authority, MAST, had filed a complaint against the CEO and the chairman of Arctic Fish.
And the process was a bit back and forth, wasn't it?
It was. The local police chief dropped it initially. MAST appealed. The national prosecutor then ordered the police to actually complete the investigation. After doing so, the police again concluded there wasn't a likelihood of conviction and dropped it.
And now the national prosecutor agrees with that second decision.
Correct. The national prosecutor has confirmed the case is dropped. Interestingly, the police issued a statement which they said was unusual, partly because of what they called strong media arguments from lawyers representing fishing associations. These lawyers had apparently accused the chief of police of being unqualified and biased.
So the police felt the need to comment publicly.
Seems so. The national prosecutor ultimately agreed with the police chief that the investigation didn't show any intentional or negligent actions by the CEO or chairman that caused the fish to escape.
Any other angles to that?
Yeah, the National Association of Angling Clubs had requested case documents, but the national prosecutor rejected that, saying the association didn't have sufficient legal interest. The police also made a comment about the media, suggesting there was a perceived lack of interest when the national prosecutor finally confirmed the case was dropped back on April 14th.
Interesting dynamics there. Now, moving to some very serious crime news reported out of Reykjavik.
Yes, very concerning reports. 2 women have filed complaints against 3 men, alleging gang rapes that occurred last month in Reykjavik, about 2 weeks apart.
Gang rapes. That's awful. What are the details?
The women's lawyer described the acts as appearing seemingly well planned. The 3 men are currently under investigation.
Are they in custody?
No, they are not in custody, although one of them was placed under a travel ban. According to the reports, both women were allegedly taken to the same apartment in Reykjavik and then assaulted there.
The same apartment.
Yes. The lawyer expressed serious concern about the apparently organized nature of these crimes. There's also suspicion that the women might have been drugged, possibly at the same nightclub beforehand.
And the lawyer is questioning why the men aren't detained.
Yes, that concern was raised. The lawyer also mentioned the women wanted to make this public to raise awareness and warn others.
What have the police said officially?
The Assistant Chief of Police for Sexual Offenses confirmed that no one is currently in custody regarding this, but couldn't comment on the specifics of the case. They did confirm one person is under a travel ban.
Any other details emerging?
According to some news sources, the men involved allegedly spoke to each other in a language other than Icelandic during the incidents.
And are incidents like this common?
Well, it was reported that 6 gang rapes have been reported in the capital area so far this year, which is apparently higher than the average for the past 5 years.
Okay, a very disturbing report. Let's move on to environmental matters in Iceland. Reindeer issues.
Yes, concerns about an overpopulation of reindeer, specifically in the Susveit area of East Iceland.
Overpopulation causing problems.
Apparently so. It's leading to environmental damage, particularly to birch forests, and farmers are reporting underweight lambs. One farmer is calling for increased culling in the area east of Jökulsárlón.
Why are they concentrated there?
Natural barriers are preventing the reindeer from moving further, so they're getting packed into certain areas. A farmer, Arnormar Fjolnison, stated the highlands are depleted, which affects the lambs, and now the reindeer are resorting to eating the natural birch forests.
So the call is for more culling just in that specific zone.
Exactly. They want more culling in Zone 9, especially the western part. This is despite an overall reduction in the culling quota, which was aimed at rebuilding the population elsewhere. Hunting is apparently quite difficult in that western terrain.
Are farmers being compensated for damage?
Arnor feels the compensation isn't enough and argues that nature simply needs time to recover. He's also critical of how the culling quotas are determined, saying they aren't based on a scientific analysis of the land's carrying capacity or regenerative ability.
There's another concern too, isn't there? Related to sheep diseases.
Yes, a major worry. There's a river, the Jökulsá á Breiðamerkursand, which marks the boundary of a disease-free zone for sheep. The concern is that reindeer could cross this river. So reducing reindeer numbers nearby is seen as crucial to protect key sheep farming areas like Reykjavík from potential disease spread.
But isn't reindeer hunting also important economically?
It is, particularly in East Iceland. The hunting industry there is estimated to generate somewhere between 300 and 400 million Icelandic kroner annually. And in other parts of the country, there are calls to increase the reindeer population.
So conflicting pressures. And the overall quota is down.
Yes, the overall culling quota is decreasing. The chair of the Reindeer Council, Sjórhallur Borgerson, actually admitted that earlier population estimates might have been inflated, leading to overculling in the past. This year, only 665 animals are approved for culling, which is about 16% of the estimated population, less than half of what was allowed a decade ago.
Has this affected the cost of hunting?
Oh, yes. Hunting permit costs are rising significantly for the upcoming season. A permit for a male reindeer is over 230,000 ISK, and for a female, over 130,000 ISK.
Why the increase?
It's attributed to funding necessary research and also providing compensation for farmers who experience damage. Landowner fees per culled animal have also increased.
What's the Reindeer Council's perspective on finding a balance?
The chair, Borgerson, emphasized the need to figure out the optimal reindeer population size and where they should be concentrated. He also stressed how important landowners' goodwill is for successful hunting management.
Okay, a complex issue with ecological and economic dimensions. Let's quickly touch on some business news from Iceland. Something familiar is arriving.
Yes, Starbucks. They're set to open their first 2 coffee houses in downtown Reykjavík this May.
Finally. Where will they be?
One location is planned for Lagðavegur, the main shopping street, and the other near Lekkjartorg Square.
Big move for them.
It is. Starbucks operates in around 80 countries, over 40,000 locations globally. The operation in Iceland, Denmark, and Finland is handled by Bergea Food International, which is based in Malaysia. Their Icelandic subsidiary, Bergea Coffee Iceland F, has already been advertising for full-time positions.
It'll be interesting to see how they fare. Iceland has seen other big international chains come and go, like McDonald's and Dunkin' Donuts.
Exactly. It's not always an easy market.
And just before we leave Iceland, a quick look at the weather.
Sure. Looks like a high-pressure system moving east will bring some light winds and drier air initially, but then expect some low-pressure systems to roll in, bringing rain towards the weekend and into early next week.
Okay, thanks. Now let's head over to the Faroe Islands, starting with the economy there. Interest rates.
Right. Landsbankin, the government debt management office, put out its annual report. It showed the average interest rate on the Faroes national debt was 2.2% at the end of 2024.
2.2%. How does that compare historically?
Well, it's significantly down from, say, 2011, but the trend is upwards again. It's been rising since 2022, mainly because of the central bank interest rate hikes we've seen globally.
And that trend is expected to continue.
Yes, they expect a further increase in the average rate in 2025. A key reason is the upcoming refinancing of a specific loan that currently has a very, very low interest rate. Replacing that will push the average up.
So refinancing activity is key here.
Definitely. They did some refinancing in 2024 and early 2025, issuing new bonds, but these came with higher interest rates reflecting the current market.
What's the overall debt picture look like?
At the end of 2024, the net national debt stood at 200 million DKK. That's bond debt of about 5 billion DKK, offset by liquid assets of 4.8 billion DKK.
And that includes everything.
No, important point. These figures represent the direct interest-bearing national debt managed by Landsbankin. It doesn't include indirect debt held by municipalities or the various tunnel companies.
Got it. What about employment figures in the Faroes?
In March 2025, the number of employees reached 29,834. That's up 1.7% compared to March the previous year.
So growth, but maybe not as strong as before.
Exactly. The report notes the growth is weaker than in previous years. One factor mentioned is less growth in the number of employees who don't have a fixed address listed.
Any gender differences in that growth?
Yes, the increase was higher among women than men. And interestingly, 80% of the total employment growth occurred in the public sector.
80% in the public sector, wow.
Yeah, and women accounted for a large majority of that public sector increase. In absolute numbers, about 400 more people are now working in the public sector compared to the previous year.
What's the overall workforce split now? Public versus private?
It's roughly 56% in the private sector and 44% in the public sector. But there's a gender skew there, too. 74.2% of men work in the private sector compared to only 37.4% of women. Conversely, 62.6% of employed women are in the public sector.
Okay, interesting dynamics in the labor market. Let's turn to politics and legal matters in the Faroes. A major drug case.
Yes, quite a significant one. 6 men have been charged in relation to smuggling 18 kilos of hashish and also some hash oil into the Faroes.
18 kilos. That's a lot for the Faroes. How are the accused pleading?
2 of the men have partially confessed, but the other 4 maintain their innocence. The main charge is smuggling these drugs last autumn with the intent to sell them.
Any details on the drugs themselves?
The hash oil was noted for having a particularly high THC content, around 90%, which is much higher than typical cannabis products, which average maybe 12%.
And how was the smuggling allegedly carried out?
The details mentioned include 1 accused arriving by boat, the Emily, from Denmark to the island of Sandor. 2 others were apparently caught while burying the hashish near Kirkjubur.
Was there more to it? Money laundering?
Yes, that's an additional charge. 2 of the men are also accused of attempting to launder 1.3 million DKK. They were arrested on the Narana ferry, the main passenger ferry, with the cash hidden in their car.
Okay, a serious case unfolding there. Sticking with Faroes politics, there's still debate about representation in the Danish parliament, the Folketing.
That's right, it's an ongoing discussion. Anna Salkenberg, who is an MP for the Union Party, Sambandsflokkeren, has been arguing strongly for retaining the Faroes and Greenlandic seats.
That's her reasoning.
Point is that as long as laws made in Denmark affect the Faroe Islands, the Faroes need to have influence there in the Folketing. She actually criticized her colleague, Sjúrður Skaale, from another party, who advocates for abolishing those seats.
Criticized him how?
She argued that Skaale's position undermines democracy. Falkenberg emphasized that her Union Party is the only true unionist party in the Faroes and is committed to maintaining the Commonwealth, the Ríkisfellesskapin.
So a clear difference in approach there regarding the relationship with Denmark. Finally, for the Faroes, an environmental regulation. Seabirds.
Yes, a new regulation, Decree number 52, came into effect on April 8th, 2025. It's about protecting seabirds during their breeding season by managing maritime traffic near the coast.
How does it change things?
It essentially extends rules that previously only applied to specific protected areas, the Ramsar Islands, to the entire coastline of the Faroe Islands now.
What are the main requirements?
The basic rule is that all ships and boats must show consideration for seabirds year-round. But there are stricter rules during the main breeding season from April 15th to August 15th.
Stricter how? Like speed limits?
Exactly. During that period, there's a maximum speed limit of 8 knots for sailing close to the shore in certain areas. These specific areas are indicated on maps included in the decree.
What areas does it focus on? Nesting sites?
Primarily nesting sites, yes. It also considers their feeding grounds to some extent. However, the decree acknowledges that knowledge about seabird feeding grounds further offshore, beyond the 500-meter zone specified, is still quite limited and scattered.
So, potential for more protection in the future?
Possibly. The Minister of the Environment has indicated an intention to discuss further protection measures for seabird feeding areas with the Environment Agency.
Okay, good to know. Now, let's move to our final region for this report. Shetland. We have reports of, unfortunately, an accident and an incident.
Yes, sadly. First, there was a jet ski incident at the Grimstad Marina. A jet ski carrying 2 people apparently crashed into a pier near the Shetland catch facility.
And the outcome.
Tragically, an 18-year-old man died at the scene. A 17-year-old male who was also on the jet ski was taken to hospital for treatment.
Awful news. Are the police investigating?
Yes, police have confirmed they are investigating the full circumstances surrounding the incident.
And there's also a fire reported.
That's right. A fire broke out on a feed barge located at Lerwick Port Authority's Greenhead base.
Any idea what caused it?
It's thought that welding work being carried out on the barge might have been the cause.
Was anyone hurt?
Fortunately, no. The person doing the welding apparently raised the alarm quickly and retreated safely. There were no injuries or casualties reported.
How was the fire dealt with?
The Scottish Fire and Rescue Service extinguished it. They were assisted by the harbor tug, the NAB, and other emergency services were also involved. 2 fire crews from Lerwick and 1 from Sandwich attended, along with the Lerwick RNLI lifeboat and Coast Guard teams.
Good response then, and glad no one was hurt in that one. Okay, that brings us to the end of our regional news report for today. We've covered quite a bit. Economic updates in Greenland and the Faroes, political developments across Greenland, Iceland, and the Faroes.
Plus legal and crime news from Iceland and Greenland, those environmental concerns about reindeer in Iceland, some business news from Iceland too, and sadly, those accident and incident reports from Shetland.
And just to reiterate, all the information we've discussed came directly from our sources. We haven't added any of our own opinions or speculation.
That's right, just reporting the developments as they've been reported.
Like and subscribe to PalsFundamentals on YouTube for more videos like this. Sources linked below.